Hello and welcome to Discover with Spinati. This is another episode, a lovely episode. This is a very special episode and don't have many of these. So I have a very special guest. My guest is, I'm not going to say her name yet, but I've known her for almost an umpteen amount of years. I was going to say the amount of years, but I'm not going to tell you. But yes, a lot of years. I've known her since university days. And she's here. She doesn't live in London, but she's a dentist and an amazing dentist at that. She goes beyond dentistry and she's a businesswoman. She is a mind of minds. She has done so many things that other people just dream of. She's a philosopher. She reads a lot. I actually can, at some points, she doesn't know this, but at some points, I actually compared her to Oprah. I kid you not, because of her depth of intellect and her depth of philosophy and the way she talks. So those of you that are listening to the podcast as you're driving or walking the dog or whatever, you guys should keep listening because you don't want to miss on this. And those who are watching on YouTube or the segments, keep watching. This one's going to be good. So Haleh, she is native to Toronto, and she moved to London to do her undergrad. And then she moved back to Toronto to do her dentistry. And then she left Toronto, and then Canada cried when she left, and she went back to Arizona with her husband. Okay, and now she runs a very successful practice amongst the competition, and she is always smiling. She comes here to teach, even though she doesn't need to. She comes here to teach. There's a lot to learn from this wonderful woman, and I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to give the mic over to her. Haleh, welcome to Discover with Spinati.
Thank you for
being
me.
Here.
I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you and catching up.
Mm-hmm. So, let's start.
Okay.
So I gave a brief introduction of who you are.
Okay.
All right.
And I'm very flattered, by the way.
Oh, I've only touched the pinnacle of it.
I'm just blushing just a little bit.
It doesn't show. So Haleh, what can you describe in a brief synopsis as to what you're doing right now? What are you partaking in, and what do people know you as?
I think I mean different things to different people. So if you're talking about my personal life, people know me as a wife, and they know me as a daughter, and I think that I'm a good one at that. They know me as a dog lover. You've met my dogs. They know me as someone who just likes to do a lot of projects. I love creation and I love taking on projects. If you ask my patients as to what they know me as the extremely busy dentist who likes to, again, take on projects and make everyone kind of smile, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're in the right profession.
I'm in the right profession for that.
So besides dentistry and your personal, what else are you doing?
Besides dentistry and all those little things, what else am I doing? I am currently trying to decide what I want to create next. Mm-hmm. I've just recently finished my major creation. As you know, I expanded the business and I went into a new space. It took about a year to build, and I've discovered that part of me, what I enjoy the most is the creation process. Mm-hmm. And once I've finished creating, I really yearn for the next project that I like to create. Mm-hmm. And right now I'm in this self-discovery mode as what do I want to create next? What do I want to do?
Right. So I don't know if you remember, but we talked a few years back. We'll always talk.
Yeah.
We talked a few years back, we met up, and you're talking to me about reaching mountaintop.
Yes.
And that you've reached the mountaintop.
And then you have to find the next mountaintop.
That's right.
You're always crawling up, aren't you?
That's right. So that's what you're talking about now.
Yes.
You're talking about finding the next mountain.
That's right.
To climb.
Yes, but I think what's changed in me is that I often couldn't experience joy until I got to the mountaintop. And as I get older, what I find is actually as I'm climbing, I'm experiencing the most amount of joy.
Right.
So it no longer matters where that mountaintop is or what mountain I am climbing. While I'm actually climbing, it is actually the highlight of my joy.
Right. And that's exactly what we talk about all the time. We talk about how the process should be the enjoyment.
It is,
and not the end.
That's right.
So a lot of psychologists, they actually preach that you should be positive in the way that you're thinking.
That's
you should
right.
be happy at the point that you start.
Be
when
in
you're
the
joining me.
now.
Right.
Be in the now.
Right.
Yeah.
You should be happy now because then that actually accelerates your achievement.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you have an edge up.
You have an edge up.
So if you
yeah.
compare like two people, one person who's very positive, hyped up, energetic, another person negative, down.
That's right.
Very, so who do you think is going to win first?
Exactly.
The one that has a lot of energy, the one who's looking always at things, half full.
That's right.
Not the cup half empty.
Yeah.
So that's the advantage point.
Well, the way I look at it is if you are living in the now and you are enjoying as you go along, you already won.
Right.
That was the point.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So what are you teaching?
What am I teaching in London?
Yes.
So I've come to London to teach applied math for first year university students. I started doing that, when I was in, I think, third year of undergrad. I was blessed because, a professor recognized this, I guess, natural ability in me to teach. And it was a great project to take on. And at the time, I needed the money, which worked out really well. But I've decided to keep it on throughout the years. It allows me to tap back into this other part of me. It has nothing to do with dentistry. I absolutely enjoy the actual teaching part. I love when I can see the spark in students' eyes when they finally get it, actually, and the relief that I can see in them. It's absolutely fun, and it keeps me kind of young. I don't want to give away my age, but coming back, being around the students, being back in my first college is very nostalgic, but I also feel like I'm that age again when I come back, and it freshens me up.
And you've had, I'm going to say this, but you've had some people hit on you?
I used to get it a lot more back in the day, and that's how you might be just getting a little bit older because you're just getting a lot less phone numbers. That's the only thing.
At least you're still getting phone numbers.
I'm getting a few.
That's good. That's good.
But
so you travel from Arizona
Yes.
to here.
Yeah.
But you don't know many people besides, the few that you know.
Yeah, over the years, the friends have graduated, they've left town, I have friends now like around the world, really. But you definitely have remained one of my main connections here, and that's actually one of the things I really do enjoy about coming back here. Yeah, so that's also the highlight, to come back, teach, get to see my friends, reminisce, and again, super nostalgic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You remember when we used to, from first year?
Yeah.
When we were too energized.
Yes.
So we weren't very focused.
I know.
Do you remember that?
Oh my gosh.
The first semester.
Yes.
So
it's really hard first year, isn't it? Because you just are trying to figure this.
Yeah, it's a shock.
It's a shock.
It's a big shock.
You're kind of almost entering adult worlds, right? Trying to find this balance between where are you, who are you, really, and that balance was key, right, to find.
And did university help you find who you were, or who you are,
or who I am? Who am I? I don't know. That's a really deep question as to who are you. But I think university taught me a lot about how to go about finding who I am.
And what's that?
A lot of the self-inquiry, a lot of the right questions I was asked, a lot of different opportunities I was given. Because a lot of it is you don't even know who you are, what you like, right? Until you're shown contrast. And I think universities, in specific, my undergraduate years, showed me a lot of contrast. And it wasn't just through the education, it was mainly through actually the people I could meet. And showing me all those contrasts, it would allow me to ask myself the right questions and get to know different parts of myself a little bit more.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
No,
I was going to say, I think the other thing that I've realized, though, over the years is that who I am is a really hard question to answer because we're not so static, are we? We're always evolving. So who are we?
So I mean, I agree with you with regards to, shown contrast. You get to see, you get to pick different flavors. You get to see which flavor you like the most.
Sure, yeah.
But to me, that doesn't really lend to discovering who you are. I was hoping you would say something like, when the more difficulties I encountered, the more I found out about myself.
That's also true, of course. Yeah, the more difficulties I encountered, for sure. I think we have it. At least I have a tendency of not remembering difficulties. You know, I don't know if it's because I'm sitting there just thinking always glass is half full. Certainly it hasn't always been that way, but when I look back at my college years, I don't remember the difficulties. I remember the sweetness of the moments of not knowing what I was doing. And it was super sweet. The not knowing was just pure potential. You just don't know. And all you are is potential, and you're there to just experience things. And I'm sure at the time it allowed me to go through difficult periods, and that led to the growth. But I don't remember specific difficulties.
So you don't remember certain things that made you veer off into a different path, or made you, you know, discover yourself in a different light?
You're definitely making me go back in and look in deep, huh?
Well, the thing is that there's always some moments in anyone's life that make them shift, that make them shift their mindset, that make them shift the way they're looking at things, that make them think of something a little bit different, from a different perspective.
From a different perspective. What has it been for you?
For me, it's been difficulties.
Difficulties.
Yes.
What do you remember? A single
So
moment?
for me, the difficulties were, so I actually shared this to my audience, that, and you probably are not going to relate to this, but I grew into a phase where I had a speech impediment, so I couldn't really speak very well.
Okay.
And I had to grow out of it. And I also had a huge social anxiety.
Really?
So yes, speaking to people was extremely difficult to me. I used to have sweats, my face used to get bloodshot,
Really?
I stutter so much. And I had to, so then when I went to Australia for dental school, that was my first difficulty. Because now I'm no longer in my comfort zone. I'm no longer amongst my friends and family. Now it's a totally different sea, totally different ocean, different sharks, right? So that made me stronger, right? Because now I had to swim against different currents, right? Something I'm not familiar with.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then becoming a dentist was the second one.
Right.
Right? Because now I have to interact with everyone.
Right.
Right? So
Makes sense.
Yeah. So that was the second one. The third one was building the business.
That was
So at every single stage of my life, I'm encountering difficulties, but I'm looking back and I'm saying, wow, like I'm so much better.
Because of that.
Because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. No, I think one of the main, as you were saying this, one of the main difficulties I remember really sticking out well was the transition actually from my undergraduate into dental school was tough. In my undergraduate, I felt like I was a somebody. I was kind of known by the professors, and everyone just kind of knew that I did well. I could get away with a lot of special attention, etc. And then, as you know, you apply to dental school and everyone is super smart. Everyone's tried really hard to get there, and you're all of a sudden not very special. And dental school in general was very different compared to engineering. And that difficult moment, again, it really put my ego into check, I think. I had come from, again, being somebody in my department, and then going into dental school, you're really not anybody. And then you also have to relearn how to learn that material. And it put my ego into check. And I think that I'm definitely better for that, for sure. Yeah. So that's one of the main things that I can think about right now. Yeah.
I always remember you as something like a busy bee.
Busy bee.
You're always doing something. You're always on the run.
I'm always on the run.
You always had something that you were doing.
Always, yeah.
Always.
I like to do multiple things at the same time.
Right.
But one of the things that I've had to learn throughout the years is, again, enjoying the process of actually doing those multiple things at the same time. Because before you know it, you're just tired and you don't remember why you were doing all these things at the same time. So enjoying it while you're doing it, and then actually finishing all the things that you're doing. And I found that now rewarding. But I have, as I've grown, learned to say no as well. And to, in order to really enjoy the things I'm doing, to say no to more things, basically.
Because you like to be involved in so many things.
Yeah.
That now you have to kind of limit yourself so you can finish those things that you say yes
well,
to.
I have so many ideas in my head. They
Right.
all must happen right now. I can hardly wait.
So what made you into the person that you are today, growing up?
Yeah.
And into deciding to choose dentistry as a profession?
Why did I choose to go to dental school?
No. So my question is that what made you into the person
Yeah.
when you're growing up to choose
Dentistry.
to become a dentist?
You know, that's a really good question that you're asking. And recently, I've been asking myself the same thing. Because often you wonder, you know, did your young self choose that career because of the expectations people had for you? Or did you know enough to choose that field, right? And to be quite honest, I'm not sure that I knew enough to choose this field. I feel grateful that I chose this field, and I feel immensely blessed that I ended up being successful in it. But I don't think at the age of 6 or 7, which is when I really actually decided to be a dentist,
Wow.
I knew enough about myself to choose this field.
When you were 6 or 7?
Yeah.
So I'm
that's
guessing
when-
then you had positive experiences with dentists then.
Yeah,
You must have.
Yeah, well, I had really bad teeth growing up.
Okay.
So, you know, I was always in and out of the dental office. And the pediatric dentist was a female dentist. And she was bossy. And I loved that. You know, she bossed around the employees and she was in charge, you know. And I remember being back in her chair, like laying back, because I had so much work done, thinking, that's who I'm going to be.
Wow.
I vividly
when you were 6 or 7?
remember thinking that that's who I want to be.
Wow.
Yeah. So then,
That's
you know, then I had orthodontics done and I had braces, and then I wanted to be that. And at that time, I didn't know enough. I thought that you could just be an orthodontist. I didn't think you had to first go to dental school and then specialize. So, and then I was in for a harsh reality. And interesting enough, orthodontics ended up being my least favorite
Oh,
specialty.
really?
So
Okay.
that's why I ended up being a general dentist, because there
Right.
was, again, I wanted to do so much.
Right.
I didn't want to limit myself to just one thing,
Right.
you know.
Right. Okay, so what were, I would say, okay, so these are certain things that you haven't shared with me before.
Yeah.
And are going to share with everybody.
Yeah.
So what 2 difficulties have you gone through
Yeah.
as a young Haleh
Yes.
that you overcame? So what were they and how did you overcome them?
What were the difficulties? And
1 or 2 difficulties.
1 or 2
Yes.
major difficulties?
Yes.
Okay. 1 or 2 major difficulties. I think one of the main ones was when we had first immigrated to Canada, and it was a really tough transition. I think I was about 10 years old at the time, and I didn't speak a whole lot of English at the time. And that was a difficult period because I also didn't have the support that you would get from your parents at the time to teach you the English.
Right.
Or at least I didn't feel it. And they must have been really overwhelmed with the move, of course. And I remember at the time I was 10 years old and I thought, this is it. It's either you rely on yourself from here on, or you're never going to make it. And I remember having that vivid thought. And I thought, okay, there is no point of sitting down and thinking the worst case scenarios, and no point of feeling helpless, because that's actually what a 10-year-old feels at first. Don't feel helpless. What you're going to do is you're just going to take charge about it. And I remember they had hired like an ESL teacher. This is where there wasn't a whole lot of immigrants, so they had to hire an ESL teacher for us. And she had a booklet that we were supposed to take the next, 4 months or whatever it was that was left of the school year to go through in order to learn the basics of English. And I remember I took that home, and I took an Oxford dictionary home, and I decided that I was going to finish the entire booklet in a matter of maybe a couple of weeks. And I did. And at the end of the 2 weeks, I was done. And then the following, I think, year, I had changed schools, and everyone had at this point already known how to type, right? We didn't have a computer, and we couldn't afford a computer. But what my parents eventually got was one of those Mac-DOS computers where all you could do, remember the orange writing?
Yes.
There was no software on it, so they bought that from some garage sale. All you could do literally type, and then you couldn't save it, right? That's all you could do. So I was I again felt helpless. In school, everyone knows how to type. I don't know how to type. And though there was typing classes, everyone was so much further ahead. So again, I brought Oxford Dictionary home, and I typed out the entire dictionary to teach myself how to type.
Wow.
And so,
How old were you?
I think at this point I was about 11 or 12,
Yeah.
something like
Right.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I typed out the whole dictionary.
Wow.
And I remember I had done it in such a short amount of time
Yeah.
that I would go to sleep and I would type my thoughts out in my sleep as to where it would be.
Yes.
And I think those difficult moments shapes who we are as adults and how are we going to take on life, basically. And I guess that's just been my approach. So in many ways, I'm glad that I wasn't spoon-fed things and that I had to figure out things. Because later on, fast forward how many more years, I'm not going to give out my age, but how many more years, I bought my first dental business. I bought the dental office. And there is nothing that they will teach you in dental school that will ever prepare you for that.
You can say that twice.
Right?
Yeah.
So I thought, again, I can feel completely helpless. You know, I had bought an existing business, so I didn't have time really to go learn all these things. You buy the business, day one, they introduce you as the new owner, and all of your employees now are looking at you for answers to things, the questions you've never heard before. And so again, you can feel helpless, or you can just simply go do something about it. And if it's the lack of information that's making you helpless, well, we're in a world where we just have information. Why would anyone feel helpless? So again, I crashed in just a
Got the Oxford
all
Dictionary?
right. Got the Oxford Dictionary.
I'm joking.
No. But actually, thank God for podcasts.
Yes.
This is why it's so good to do podcasts.
Yes.
Thank God for podcasts.
Yes.
I did hours and hours of podcasts. I found bloggers and asked them questions, and by then, though, I had learned to actually enjoy the process of learning. I remember sleeping in the office because I couldn't stop reading this, all the information and all the things I could do with this information. So that's what I did in order to learn everything I needed to know to run this business, And who knew? I became a natural. I didn't know that I could be a good businesswoman, and it turned out that I'm actually quite natural in it. So
You're natural in a lot of things.
am I?
And actually, it's really cool that at 6 or 7 years old,
Yeah.
you said you're going to be a boss, and you became a boss.
I know.
So
It's crazy.
maybe subconsciously you already
Yes.
knew that you were going to become that,
Become that boss.
right?
Yeah.
But I mean, you had to discover that through a lot of processes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing that's
exactly.
really cool about you is that I realized that whenever you find any kind of problem,
Yeah.
you actually tackle it head first.
Yes.
So you don't sit back and you're like, why did this problem present itself to me?
Right.
You're like, I have a problem.
Yes.
Let's solve it.
Yeah.
And actually, like, you're very super proactive. You know what I mean?
I'm always about what I call active change, right? So instead of, again, worrying about why you need to change, why you need to grow, just actively grow.
Right. That's right.
That's why we're here.
That's right.
And also learn to
Yes.
enjoy that growth.
So those people that are right now listening to this,
Yeah.
and they're going through some difficulties trying to figure out what they want, how to figure it out. A lot of people don't have your mentality, and I would say you're one of the 1% that actually.
Really?
Yes, because
Thank you.
no, seriously, because a lot of people don't approach life like that. They don't approach life with, I have a problem,
Yeah.
let's solve it,
Yeah.
right? A lot of them have an approach of, I have a problem. Why do I have this problem?
Right.
Right? Like, why me?
Why me?
Yeah, you're right. So you don't. So, what advice can you give to females in particular and everyone in general
Yes.
about finding their true colors?
Right. Their true colors, you mean in terms of
Their flavor, like what they should be doing, what
they should-
direction they should be going into, if they haven't figured it out when they were 6 or 7 years old.
Right. So is this kind of in terms of their career or just anything, any decision in life?
I would say anything.
anything in life.
Anything, but I mean, coming from you being a businesswoman,
Right.
more towards career-wise.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that one of the most important things to do is set what your intentions are, right? What is the driving force behind the decisions you're making? What is it ultimately that's your intention? So for instance, you're trying to figure out a career, let's say, right? What is your intention with what you're trying to achieve with this career? Is your intention that you would like to master an art? Are you trying to give back to the world? What is that driving force that's behind why you want to do that thing, right? And if you get very clear-headed and you figure out what your intentions are, then within the contrast, it becomes a lot easier to figure out which option will most feed this intention. It's often very hard, it is very hard to stay on a path, because as you start on your path, then you're now again shown many other contrasts. So if you just keep going back to your core as to what was the intention that I set, what's the ultimate reason that I'm doing this, then you can be guided along this path a lot easier and not lose track. Now, remember your intention, but also remain flexible to what life has to present. I think it's the inflexibility that will torment us. And it's that inflexibility of mind that lets you take on a challenge and say, instead of, well, how can I grow with this? And say, why did it happen to me? Because you're being so inflexible that you're thinking, it didn't go exactly how I wanted to get from A to B. It didn't go exactly my way. Why not? Why did that happen to me? So know what your intentions are, but be flexible and play. Play along the route. We're here to play. We're here to enjoy. So if you think of, I have this challenge in my life, let's have fun. And learn how to go through that challenge. Go back to your intention when you are presented with multiple different ways to solve this challenge.
Love that. I love that. High five for that. That was really deep. I love it.
You like it?
Yeah, I love it. It's very good. Yeah.
I love talking to you.
Yeah, that's good. I think you benefited a lot of people just from that.
Really?
Yes, you did. You did.
Thank you.
So, where you see yourself going in the next 5 to 10 years?
In the next 5 to 10 years, that's a great question, because as you know, that's literally what I'm trying to answer right now. What do I want to create next? What's my next project? I think that I want to see different fields that are out there. I've really immensely enjoyed creating my business. I've enjoyed learning the dentistry, and I think that I'll have more years to enjoy that for sure. But there's been recently so much in the world that interests me. So recently, one of the things that's been immensely interesting to me has been organic farming. And I kind of stumbled upon that just by travels. And I really want to learn how to farm. And I don't think it's because I want to own a farm and farm as a living. That's one of the great things about our career. And if you're successful, you have this leisurely way of now figuring out what your next passion project is. I'm looking for a passion project. And I really want to actually learn about organic farming. Yeah, I want to play with my hands, but in a different way. Yeah.
Wow. What books are you reading?
What books am I reading? As you know, I'm always between like 1,000 different books, right? I'm reading a fiction that I really like, and it's called When Nietzsche Wept.
Oh, okay.
And
it's by who?
It's by, I forget his name. It's a psychotherapist out of Stanford.
Okay.
And he writes this philosophical book about Nietzsche's thinking, and at the same time about Freud as well. And he examines kind of life through their eyes and the troubles that they had and how they viewed the world as well. And I'm really enjoying this fiction, What has been my most recent nonfiction? As you know, I love recommending books to you.
I know you like Paulo Coelho.
Sure. Paulo Coelho is one of my absolute favorite
Yes, I know
fiction, for sure, authors. But I've been reading a lot of nonfiction as well recently. And I would say one of my absolute, I think, most favorite ones in the recent years has been Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Have you recently heard of it? Or?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really, I mean, it's really deep. But if you really do pay attention to it, I think it answers a lot of, it's helpful in a lot of complex situations, the power of now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for agreeing on being on the podcast. I kind of just dragged you on.
I know. Thank you for having me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So if people want to get a hold of you,
yes.
How do they get a hold of you?
Well, you can always email me.
Okay. What's your email address?
And it's very straightforward. It's my first name, HALEH, and B as in boy, @gmail.com. So halehb@gmail.com.
Very easy. And actually, we'll have it right here so you guys can check it out. For the YouTube, you guys can check out the description down below. Do you have a website that you want to direct your audience to?
I don't have a personal website.
Your business website?
My business website is www.sonorandesertdentistry.com.
Okay, sonorandesertdentistry.com.
That's right.
And
mouthful.
yes. And how do you spell that?
S as in Sam, ONORAN.
Okay.
Desertdentistry.com. So we're in the Sonoran Desert, and that's why it's called the Sonoran Desert Dentistry.
Right on. And you guys can also find a link to that in the description box below if you're watching the YouTube. And you guys will find that in the transcript as we're talking. You guys will find it. And also, I'll link her as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. We had a pleasure speaking here and having Haleh here. We had a lot of nostalgic moments. And I hope you guys benefited a lot from the things that she had to say and the enlightenments that she shared with us with regards to how she grew up, the way that she approaches life, and the books she recommends, and the way that we should be looking at our struggles. And that's with forward thinking, with proactivity, enjoying the moment, and not letting things just go and being a victim. Thanks again. This was another amazing episode of Discover with Spinati. We'll see you soon.